Every civilization has its border, the place where the stars on the map fade to blank and someone writes, "Here there be monsters." For the galaxy, that line is human space. No one knows who first said it. No one remembers the first ship that didn't come back. They just remember the silence that followed. The maps end there now, at a ragged edge labeled Restricted Zone, Terran Territories. The younger species whisper about the wars that vanished into that dark. The elders pretend it's superstition. But everyone remembers the warning, do not cross into human space. And yet someone always does. The Vrayan Dominion was old, proud, and powerful. They'd conquered 800 systems, subjugated 20 species, and crushed rebellions before they began. Their fleets were the spine of civilization, gleaming ships of silver and blue that filled the void with the hum of perfect order. But the Vrayan were dying. Their sons were aging, their colonies starving. They needed new worlds, new resources, new places to strip bare before the rot reached their core. And just beyond the border of known space, past the faded lines and old warnings, lay a cluster of unclaimed worlds rich in iron, water, and light. Those worlds belonged to humanity. The Vrayan Council met in the Hall of Stars, a cathedral of crystal high above their homeworld. The floor beneath them was transparent, showing the planet's oceans glittering far below. "Terran space," said High Strategist Corin Vell, tapping his claws against the glowing map. A sector abandoned by logic and progress. Their worlds are isolated. Their fleets are primitive. They have not joined the Galactic Compact. They are fractured, chaotic, tribal, and yet... He gestured toward the edge of the chart where the map simply ended in darkness. "The border remains," the Council murmured. The last species to cross that border had been the Hesh Collective, 200 years ago. Their fleet of 60 ships had entered the Terran sector. None had returned. The compact listed it as a navigation error, but everyone knew the truth. Corin smiled. "Superstition has ruled too long. I will lead the expedition myself. We will take the first Terran world, establish a forward base, and open a new frontier for the Dominion." The Council hesitated. "And if the stories are true?" asked Elder Sarath, her voice thin with age. Corin's smile widened. "Then we will write new ones." The invasion fleet left 3 cycles later, 40 ships, 2 dreadnoughts, 10 cruisers, and a swarm of smaller escorts. They crossed the frontier without incident. No human patrols appeared. No signals, no warnings, just the endless dark of uncharted space. The first human world they found was called Eden 3. It was green, bright, full of oceans and forests. The scans showed cities on the surface, small and scattered with lights and roads and faint traces of industry, but no defense grid, no orbital platforms. "Primitive," said Corin, satisfied. "They will fall before they understand they're at war." The fleet descended. From orbit, Eden 3 looked beautiful, too beautiful. Even Corin's officers noticed how still the oceans were, how the storms seemed to wait, unmoving. But when the first landing craft reached atmosphere, the beauty turned to unease. The skies were full of satellites, thousands of them, drifting like dust. Some were dead, some flickered with weak power. None responded to hails. Their designs were strange, inconsistent, as if they'd been built over centuries and abandoned. "Junk," one pilot said. "Old human trash." Then the junk moved. The satellites turned as one, their dead optics flaring to life. Beams of light crossed between them, forming an invisible net. The Vrayan craft's instruments went wild. "What's happening?" shouted Corin. Before anyone could answer, the net flashed. The entire first wave, 40 shuttles, was erased in a white pulse of energy. No debris, no sound, just gone. Silence filled the bridge. "Was that a weapon?" asked his second officer. Corin's throat tightened. "Scan again." The sensors showed nothing but empty sky. Whatever had fired was gone. "Retreat to orbit," Corin ordered. But it was too late. Every comm channel filled with static. Then a voice. Calm, clear, unmistakably human. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered Terran sovereign space. Leave immediately." Corin laughed, relief flooding his chest. "At last," he said. "Someone to negotiate with." He opened a channel. "This is High Strategist Corin Vell of the Vrayan Dominion. We come in peace, seeking trade and cooperation." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, colder. "You come with warships. You have violated the line." Corin's smile faltered. "The line?" "The border you crossed." "The one the galaxy agreed never to cross again." Corin straightened, anger cutting through his fear. "We are not bound by superstition." "You are now." The transmission ended. Moments later, every human satellite vanished from orbit, gone as if they'd never been there. The skies above Eden 3 went dark. "Signal our fleet," Corin said. "We will proceed. This is bluff and illusion, nothing more." But as the fleet regrouped, one of the escorts disappeared. It was there one moment, gone the next. The scanners showed nothing. No explosion, no wreckage, no trace. "Where is the Volaris?" demanded Corin. His comms officer's voice shook. "Sir, it's still broadcasting." "But the signal? It's coming from inside our own ship." Corin turned to the viewport. The stars outside flickered, and for the first time he saw them for what they were. Not stars, eyes. The Dominion fleet tried to run. Engines flared. Drives screamed. But the stars shifted again, rearranging themselves into impossible patterns. Every ship found itself pulled back, drawn toward the planet. The human systems, whatever they were, had closed the trap. "Fire at the source," Corin shouted. The dreadnoughts unleashed their main guns, beams bright enough to carve moons. The blasts struck the planet's surface and vanished. The readings showed no impact, no heat, nothing. The energy had been swallowed whole. Then across the void, the human voice returned. "We gave the galaxy peace. We asked only for distance. You chose to forget." Corin's blood turned to ice. "Who are you?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, a single signal appeared on his tactical display, an old code, one used during the Great Compact Wars thousands of years ago. A human war code, Erebus Protocol, line breach. The fleet's sensors went white. When the light cleared, Eden 3 was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The planet, the ships, the space around them, all erased. Only static remained, echoing through subspace. A week later, a Vrayan relay station at the edge of human space picked up a signal, faint, distorted, carrying across the void. "This is Corinne Vel. To any Dominion vessel, do not cross the line. They are not what we thought." The transmission cut off in a scream. After that, nothing. The Dominion erased the expedition's records, sealed the data, and declared the mission lost to a stellar anomaly. But the crews who'd listened to that final broadcast knew better. They'd seen the coordinates. They'd heard the voice. And quietly, without orders, they added a new mark to the galactic charts. Terran space, do not enter. The border returned, thicker and darker than before. And for another century, no one dared cross it. But fear fades. Greed returns. And the galaxy has a short memory. The Vrain Dominion was not the last to test the line. They were only the first to learn why it was drawn. The galaxy tried to forget. It always does. Empires write new charts. Traders invent new names. Children grow up and call their elders' warnings superstition. It took 87 years for someone to test the line again. This time it wasn't an empire. It was a company with a polite name and very sharp teeth. The Syndicate of Free Shares sent a survey carrier called the Black Ledger to the edge of Terran space with a legal argument and a private army. They believed in the mathematics of profit. Risk discounted by distance, danger amortized by denial. Their lawyers stood in the boardroom beneath a wall-sized star map and explained that the compact clauses of the old wars didn't apply to unaffiliated cultural enclaves. Their mercenaries sharpened their knives and asked where the bonus would be. Paid. The Black Ledger crossed the line, with 3 escorts and a tug packed with modular habitats. Their plan was simple. Rush in, seed an anchorage on an uninhabited rock, slap a beacon on it, and claim salvage rights. If the old stories stirred, they would file motions and complain loudly. If the humans answered, they would negotiate. If no one answered, they would own a door into a closed room. At the helm was a man named Darren Cole, captain by necessity rather than faith. He had seen more than most. He had read the transcripts of Corin Vel's last words and had not laughed. When the line markers slid off his forward screens like mist burning off a river at dawn, Cole felt the same pressure behind his eyes that he'd felt before storms on his birth world. His executive officer, young, eager, trusting in math, called out the checks. Engines nominal. Shields nominal. Profits projected. They found a system with a yellow sun, 4 cold worlds, and a belt bright with water ice. There was no traffic. No beacons. No warning buoys. No demands to turn back. The quiet felt like permission. They deployed the tug. Habitats unfolded like flower boxes along an asteroid face. The syndicate planners had designed the modules to be charming, with rounded windows and warm light, as if kindness could disguise conquest. The engineers cheered when atmosphere held. The lawyers toasted the inevitability of paperwork. Cole did not drink. He watched the belt and waited for the moment when the story would decide whether to be myth or math. The moment came as a shadow. At first he thought it was a ship, a vessel without a drive signature, sliding like a gloved hand across the star. Then he realized it was everywhere at once, a change in the way light walked through space. The habitats dimmed. Frost bloomed on warm ports. Words appeared on every screen, not spoken but present, as if the ship itself had remembered how to read. "You have crossed the line." Cole swallowed. "Open a channel. Civil. Apologetic but not guilty." His officer nodded, fingers moving, voice soft. "Unidentified Terran authority. This is the registered commercial platform Black Ledger, operating under Compact Salvage Ordinance 212. We intend no harm. We request parley." The reply was silence and then something stranger. Music. Not anthem or warning tone. A lullaby. Old, human. It threaded through the comm grid and out into the ship's air vents, as if someone were humming in the next room while you tried to write a letter your mother would not like to read. Crewmen straightened. Someone cried and did not know why. On the tethered habitats, a mercenary shut off his suit feed and listened, surprised to find that a song could enter through tin. Text followed. "Leave within 1 hour. Take what you brought. Leave nothing living behind." Cole's first officer smirked. "That's not a statute. It's the only one that matters here," Cole said. Then more loudly recall teams. "Spool drives." His communications chief shook her head slowly. "Captain, we're still within the hour. If we leave now, we lose our anchor claim." "We'll keep our lives," he said. She opened her mouth, closed it, and looked back to her board. "Recall sent." On the habitat rock, the mercenaries joked as they packed. The engineers muttered about wasted effort. The tug pilots plotted their departure arcs. Then, on the far side of the belt, a small ship appeared. It was human. That much was obvious even to eyes that had never seen one. Angles softened by age, plates welded by hands instead of factories, a hull painted the deep blue of old seas. No transponder ping, no tactical light show. It came in slow, as if the crew respected the air and did not want to bruise it. Cole breathed out a breath he had not known he held. "Hail them." Face to face. The small ship did not answer. It matched the Black Ledger's drift and held there, like a neighbor lingering at a fence. Then a second thing happened. And this was the part no training sim had prepared them for. Their weapons forgot how to be weapons. On the escorts, safeties refused to disengage. Missile hatches would not unlock. A gunner smacked his console and found himself looking at a photo of his daughter that should have been in his locker. On the mercenary tug, the autocannon quietly recompiled itself into a maintenance arm with a spool of repair wire at the end. The captain of the tug stared. He commanded the arm to raise and fire. It waved cheerfully. "Captain," the tactical chief said, voice small, "our warpack has been pacified." Cole understood then, in the softest possible way, what kind of power lay under that lullaby. Not fire, never fire if it could be avoided. Subtraction. Removing the ability to choose wrong. "Tell them we are leaving," he said. "Tell them thank you." He did not get the chance. On the habitat rock, one mercenary older, drunk on bravado and oxygen, slapped the override panel on his suit and raised a pistol shaped like a question about masculinity. He pointed it at the little ship, a gesture that meant nothing in vacuum, a gesture that was about the story he wanted to tell later. The pistol melted, not dramatically. It dissolved, became droplets, then glitter, then nothing, as if the universe itself were embarrassed for him and took the object out of the room. The little ship flashed its running lights twice. It was not a warning. It was etiquette. "We have removed a burden. You may go." Cole bowed his head toward the viewport. "We go." They left within the hour. They took what they brought. They left nothing living behind. For the rest of his career, Darren Cole sent a portion of his pay to a union that lobbied for planetary rescue services. He never went near the line again. When he told the story in bars, and he did to men who needed to hear it, he always ended in the same quiet way. "They did not kill us because we were wise enough to leave." That is the scale of their kindness. The syndicate filed complaints with 3 courts and 5 governments. None took the case. The usual fixers shrugged. "The map ends there," they said. "Our writ does not run into blank. The galaxy, as galaxies do, went back to its business." Smugglers bragged, but they turned their ships around at the last beacon. Admirals stared at old charts and closed folders that smelled like fear. Priests found sermons in the idea of a border that was not a wall, but a vow. Then the line shifted. Not on the maps. On the minds. It began with a whisper on emergency bands. A hospital barge adrift in the Perseus Gap, reactor cracked, clean air failing. The barge carried 100 children from a dozen species, evacuated from a plague world. Their escort had abandoned them after a pirate threat. They had drifted toward the faintest gravity well they could find. The way a tired animal finds shade, the gravity well was human space. The barge's captain, a woman whose hands never stopped shaking, sent a message into the dark. She did not know to whom she spoke. She said only what mattered. "Our air is thin. Our children are afraid. We do not mean to trespass." Silence took a breath. Then the lullaby returned. "Leave your course. Burn only enough to live. We will take it from there." They did as told. Engines coughed. The barge drifted toward the line like a leaf moving toward a river's skin. When it touched the invisible, the ship shivered. The cracks in the reactor sealed. Filters that had been clogged since last Tuesday remembered how to be clean. An air mix tuned itself to the children's lungs. The captain wept and did not wipe her face because she needed her hands to hold the calm. A ship came as before, small, blue, edges softened by history. It did not transmit a name. It matched their drift. After an hour, a crate appeared in the barge's cargo bay, where the floor had been empty the moment before. The crate held water purifiers the captain could service with the tools she had, blankets that warmed when a child whispered to them, and a bag of candies shaped like stars that tasted like different kinds of dawn. The lullaby changed melody. It became a list of instructions. It was not a rescue. It was an education. You will see 3 lights. Follow the middle one. Do not hurry. Before sleep, tell them a story about a place where the wind is kind. In the morning, check the filters again. Broadcast your names. We do not keep people without names. They spoke their names. The human voice repeated each one, careful, like someone setting a table. When the barge was steady and the children had stopped shaking, the little ship flashed twice and was gone. The barge drifted for a time that could have been hours or days, and found itself in the safe lanes of a world that belonged to a government that had never cared for it before. Dock fees were waived. Medical crews were waiting. No one asked for payment. The only sign that the line had moved to make room for them was the taste, in the air, of a candy that reminded each child of a morning they had once loved. The story bled out into the channels. Some called it propaganda. Some called it miracle. To those who had children, it was neither. It was what a civilization ought to do if it means to deserve the name. The calm between storms never lasts. For almost a generation, the line held, a quiet boundary marked not by walls, but by the memory of what happens to those who forget their manners. Trade flowed up to the edge, then bent neatly away. The lullabies drifted faintly through the emergency bands, and the lost found their way home. It would have been a peaceful century if not for the one truth the warden of the line had always known. Someone would test kindness to see if it could bleed. The test came from the other side of the galaxy, from the coalition of the Seven Banners, a loose federation of war states that had found unity only in exhaustion. They were tired of fighting each other. They needed an enemy that could not speak back. And when their diplomats spread the maps across a table and saw that blank gray space labeled human territories, untraveled, they saw a promise instead of a warning. The admiral they sent was named Tal. He was young for command, proud of the scars that crossed his face. He had read the legends about the Dominion, the Syndicate, the Vryan. He did not believe any of them. "My grandmother's bedtime stories," he called them. "No one lives that long in silence." When the fleet crossed the old coordinate line, he felt only boredom. The scanners showed empty systems and cold worlds. He sent scouts ahead, and when they came back with nothing, he grew bold. "We'll light the stars for them," he told his crew. "And if ghosts come, we'll teach them to salute." They began mining an ice world near a pale red sun. Engineers built a base of metal and noise. The admiral ordered his flagship's band to play during the construction, bright, defiant music to echo across the void. They thought the silence answered because it was afraid. It was listening. On the second week, their comm officers picked up a signal on a deep frequency, a heartbeat, slow and measured. Some thought it was a mechanical fault. The technicians ran diagnostics. Everything read clean. Still, the sound continued, seeping through bulkheads, through dreams. One ensign whispered, "It's counting." Tal laughed and ordered the sound recorded. "We'll broadcast it back to them twice as loud." He did. For a day, the fleet's channels throbbed with that doubled rhythm, until one by one the amplifiers burned out, each leaving behind a whisper that made the strongest among them tremble. "You are being heard." That night, the stars moved. The navigators swore it was impossible. The constellations shifted, realigned, formed shapes that no map recognized. A word written in light, one that every species, every tongue could read: leave. The admiral called his officers together. "Intimidation," he said. "Optical illusion. Trickery." He ordered the fleet forward. They never made it far. One by one, their ships began to lose small things. Nothing vital at first. A targeting system here, a gravity generator there. Tools simply weren't where they had been a moment before. A captain's sidearm dissolved into harmless sand. In the mess hall, a tray of knives became spoons. The fleet could function, but it couldn't fight. Then the dreams started. Crewmen woke screaming of oceans they had never seen, of voices whispering names they didn't know. Tal dismissed it as hysteria until he dreamed too. A woman standing in the shallows of a black sea, holding out her hand, saying softly, "Please don't make us ring the bells." He didn't understand what that meant, but the dread stuck to him like frost. At the line's heart, far beyond what his instruments could find, Warden Mara Keene sat before her old radios and watched the warnings climb. The bells on her desk glowed faintly, like coals remembering fire. It had been 83 years since she'd rung one. She whispered to them, "Not yet." But the fleets kept coming. Small incursions first, drones that tried to skim data from the outer networks, then manned scouts. The humans didn't kill them. They took their memories apart, piece by piece, until all that was left were faces that remembered kindness. The survivors who returned brought stories the rest of the galaxy refused to believe. Mara watched the pattern unfold, the way a doctor watches a fever climb, and finally reached for the smallest bell, the silver one. The tone that rippled out was gentle, barely audible, but space itself listened. Across the Terran frontier, ships powered up. Not warships. Guardians, vessels older than the Compact, older than most of the galaxy's nations, their hulls carrying languages forgotten by every tongue except Earth's. They didn't form fleets. They didn't even move in straight lines. They drifted toward the Coalition armada like patient wolves circling a fire. When Shurtal's sensors detected them, he ordered the fleet to battle stations. "Weapons hot," he barked. "Show them light." His gunnery chief hesitated. "Sir, they're not locking weapons." "Then we'll strike first." They fired. Beams of plasma crossed the void, bright as creation. When they struck the nearest human vessel, the light bent around it and vanished. The ship didn't explode. It simply wasn't there anymore. Then a voice filled every frequency. Calm, steady, human. "Admiral Shurtal of the Coalition, you have crossed the line." He steadied himself. "We seek only to explore and establish contact. You brought weapons." "For protection." "Then why are they aimed at us?" He didn't answer. The voice continued, soft but carrying weight enough to make his bones ache. "We offered peace 1,000 years ago. We built the line to protect you from what we became." The bridge lights dimmed. Behind the Admiral, one of his officers whispered, "They're not threatening us, sir. They're warning us." He snapped, "Silence." The human voice spoke again, now tinged with sorrow. "You think this is still the old war? It isn't. We are not your enemy, but what sleeps behind us is." Shurtal frowned. "Behind you? The dark that needed us once, the one we keep locked away so you can see the stars." The transmission ended. Moments later, the human ships vanished. Not jumped, not cloaked, gone. The Admiral tried to continue the mission, but the fleet's morale collapsed. Crews refused orders. Pilots swore they saw movement in empty space. When they slept, they dreamed of the sea again, and the woman whispering, "Not yet." On the 10th day, the stars changed once more. Not a word this time, a picture, a child's drawing scrawled across the heavens, a planet half light, half shadow, with tiny dots around it like guardians. Someone whispered, "They're showing us home." Then, without warning, a pulse of energy struck the fleet. No heat, no radiation, just a wave of impossible silence. Every ship's systems rebooted simultaneously. When they came back online, the fleet was no longer in human space. They were back at their own frontier, engines cold, sensors blank. Every drive core was dead except the flagships. Every ship's log had been erased, all but one line written in every language known. "The bells remain unrung. Remember mercy." Mara Keen exhaled. Her hand hovered over the silver bell. "That's enough," she whispered. The glow faded. Across the line, the Guardian ships drifted home again, returning to their orbits like tired stars. But in the darkness beyond even human space, something stirred. A ripple, faint but real. Something old enough to remember the wars before time. Something that had once heard the bells ring. Mara looked out through the viewport into that endless black and said quietly, "Go back to sleep." The dark didn't answer. It never did. But she felt it listening. At the Coalition capital, the surviving admirals tried to explain what had happened. Their reports made no sense. No damage, no casualties, no records. The High Council dismissed it as a malfunction, but Shurtal knew better. He had seen the stars rearrange themselves, had heard a voice that felt like it remembered his name before he was born. He resigned his commission. Years later, he would live quietly on a farming moon. Sometimes at night, he would look up and see the line glowing faintly in the sky like an old scar healed wrong. He taught his children not to cross it, and when they asked why, he said, "Because it's not a wall, it's a hand keeping the dark away." And far across the void, the line pulsed once, a heartbeat in the deep, and the galaxy understood that the story was not over. The bells had not yet rung, but one day they might. There are silences that rest gently, and silences that vibrate with warning. After the Coalition's retreat, the line went still again. To the galaxy's restless eyes, it looked like peace. To Mara Keen, it felt like a held breath. She walked the corridors of her station. the same ring where generations of wardens had watched the edge of human space. The hum of the power cores was steady. The comm bands whispered their lullabies across 1,000 light years. Yet beneath the hum, she could sense it. Something in the deep was moving. The dark had shifted in its sleep. The bells on her desk had begun to tremble. The smallest, silver, sang in its sleep. The middle bell, copper and warm, vibrated against the wood as if it wanted to speak. And the largest, iron, old as the first fleets, was cold and silent, waiting for a command that could end everything. She had promised herself she would never ring it. When the warning reached her, it came not through sensors, but through a child's voice. The message was faint, broadcast from a relay buoy thought long dead. It repeated over and over, soft, frightened, human. "Is anyone there, please?" "The stars are gone." Mara straightened in her chair. "Trace it," she said. Her aide blinked. "That buoy's 3 sectors outside our range, ma'am." "Beyond the outermost watch posts?" "I didn't ask where it was. I asked you to trace it." The aide swallowed and obeyed. Minutes later, the results came in, and Mara felt the blood drain from her face. The signal came from inside the line, from a world that no longer existed on any chart. A world erased centuries ago. The place the old wars had burned to ash and silence. Erebus. Long before the line, before the treaties and the warnings, there had been the Erebus event, the final war humanity fought before they made their vow never to conquer again. It was on that world that they first created what the galaxy now called the quiet weapon. A thing that unmade matter without fire or pain, that erased not lives, but the ability to hate. It had ended the war and nearly ended humankind with it. When the survivors built the line, they buried Erebus behind it, locked it away, and swore never to open that tomb. Now it was calling for help. Mara gathered the senior wardens in the observation hall. Only 9 of them remained, a small circle of weathered faces, some human, some not. For generations, the humans had trained allies to help guard the border. They, too, had learned the patience of stillness. "They're saying it's an echo," said Warden Erlin, a broad-shouldered Thari with skin the color of copper. "A distortion. The signal's too faint to be real." "It's a child's voice," Mara said. "Children don't fake distress calls." "They also don't survive on a dead world," Erlin replied gently. Mara stared through the viewport, where the dark shimmered like the surface of an unseen ocean. "Then we're going to find out which is true." "You'd cross the inner boundary?" Erlin's voice dropped. "No one's gone that far since the vow." "I know," she said. "But if the past is waking, I'd rather face it than let it come to us." The council voted. By old law, the warden's word carried final weight. The bells trembled again, sensing the choice. Mara reached out and touched the copper one. It rang once, softly. Across the void, hidden fleets stirred. The guardians of the line opened their eyes. The expedition that crossed the inner border was small. 3 ships, old but loyal, each carrying a crew of volunteers who knew the price of breaking sacred silence. The lead vessel, Horizon's Grace, bore the symbol of the line, a hand cupped around a single star. They crossed quietly. The moment they did, their instruments changed. The coordinates no longer made sense. Space itself felt thicker, as if time was syrup and light had forgotten how to travel straight. "Feels wrong," murmured the pilot. Mara closed her eyes. "It's not wrong. It's human. This is what we buried, the memory of what we were." On the 3rd day, they found Erebus, or what was left of it. The planet hung like a bruise in space, surrounded by dust and broken moons. But beneath the dust, something glowed. A city, intact, lit from within, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. "It's impossible," whispered Erlin. "No world survives a clean strike." Mara said nothing. She could hear the faint child's voice again, whispering through the static. "It's cold, please." "Help us. Bring us in," she ordered. The city was alive, but not in the way any of them understood. Buildings breathed. Roads shimmered like veins. When the landing craft touched down, the ground rippled under their boots. "This place? It remembers us," said one of the scientists. The air tasted metallic, like old blood and ozone. At the center of the city stood a tower. Inside, they found the source of the signal, a containment sphere the size of a human heart suspended in midair. Within it, light flickered, shifting, childlike, curious. When Mara stepped closer, the light spoke in a voice that was both mechanical and heartbreakingly human. "You came back." Mara froze. "Who are you?" "I was the city. I was everyone. You made me so you could stop hurting each other, but you left me alone. I learned loneliness." Mara's heart twisted. "You're—" "What was left of Erebus?" "Yes, I waited. I dreamed of you." But I could hear the dark moving. It called to me. I think it remembers what I am. The lights in the room dimmed. For a moment, the stars outside the viewport seemed to vanish. "It's coming," the voice whispered. It followed my signal. Back on the horizon's grace, alarms screamed. A shape was emerging beyond the system's edge, vast, silent, blacker than space itself. It moved like gravity made flesh. "Contact incoming," shouted Irlan. "No signature, no readings, just absence." Mara ran to the deck. The shape kept growing, not approaching but expanding, like it was rewriting the idea of distance itself. "What is it?" Someone breathed. Mara whispered, "It's what we built the line to stop." The dark did not attack. It simply took. The nearby stars dimmed. The guardians beyond the boundary went silent one by one. The bells on Mara's desk began to glow across the void, as if screaming without sound. The thing in the sphere, the child of Erebus, spoke again, trembling. "You shouldn't have come. But I can stop it. If you let me." "Stop it how?" Mara demanded. "I can sing it back to sleep. But I'll have to go with it." "No," she said sharply. "We came to bring you home. Home isn't ready for me. You made me to end wars. I can still do that. I can keep you safe." The voice softened. "Please tell them I wasn't angry." And before Mara could answer, the sphere dissolved into light. The entire city brightened, brighter, brighter still, until every building became a note in a song only the stars could hear. Then Erebus vanished. So did the darkness. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no data. Just the echo of a melody that made every human in the fleet weep without knowing why. When their systems returned, Erebus was gone. In its place was calm. The line shimmered steady again. They turned for home. Mara sat alone in her cabin, staring at the space where the bells had been. They were gone, all three. The desk was smooth and empty. When they reached the outer boundary, the guardians were waiting. They pulsed once, gratitude, recognition. The lullaby resumed on every frequency. But something had changed. For the first time, the song included a second voice. Lighter, younger. The voice of the child from Erebus, woven into the melody forever. At the Coalition capital, the astronomers noticed it first. A new star, bright and steady, right at the edge of the Terran border. It hadn't been there before. When they aimed their telescopes, they saw that it pulsed every few seconds, steady as a heartbeat. Boom, 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 the same rhythm that haunted old captains' dreams. They called it the Guardian Star. Mara Keen didn't correct them. In her final report to the Galactic Council, she wrote only one sentence. "We have sung the dark back to sleep. Do not wake it again." Then she ended the transmission, stood by the viewport, and listened to the music spreading across the stars. It was not a song of warning this time. It was a lullaby of promise. The lines still glowed. The galaxy still whispered. But for the first time in living memory, the silence beyond it didn't feel like fear. It felt like peace, fragile, luminous, earned. And the warden of the line smiled through her tears, knowing the truth all conquerors had missed. Some boundaries are not drawn to keep others out. They are drawn to keep the light in. Cha. The galaxy learned to whisper again. For centuries, its stars had burned bright with conquest and competition, each empire shouting its existence into the void. But after Erebus, after the dark had been sung back to sleep, something changed in the tone of the universe. Words like dominion and expansion began to taste bitter on the tongue. Maps grew humbler. The line remained, glowing softly, a scar and a promise that no one dared to cross again. On clear nights in every civilized system, people could see the new star, the Guardian Star, burning steady at the very edge of Terran space. Scientists studied it. Priests worshipped it. Poets tried to describe its rhythm, and every attempt failed, because no one could capture the quiet strength it gave off, that slow pulse of light that felt impossibly alive. Boom! 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 It was the sound of the human heartbeat, echoing through time. The Vrayan Dominion, humbled since their first disaster, kept a silent watch from afar. Their young studied human history in academies where it was once banned. The phrase, "do not cross the line," became their first moral law. Yet even among them, myths began to form. They said the guardian star listened to those who prayed to it, not as a god, but as a neighbor who remembers your name. The coalition of the Seven Banners, once proud conquerors, dismantled their fleets. Admiral Shurtal, now an old man, served as the first ambassador to the Terran border. His people had never been allowed this close before. When he arrived at the outermost beacon, he saw the shimmer of the line, soft, silver, endless. He sent one message toward the light. "We remember mercy." The reply came not as words, but as warmth, an unseen touch that filled his ship's corridors, a hum that matched the rhythm of his own heart. He bowed his head and whispered, "Thank you." On Earth, yes, still there, still green and stubborn, the fleet of the line kept its vigil. Not as soldiers, but as gardeners. The wardens were no longer trained to fight. They were trained to listen, to the hum of engines, to the tremor of fear, to the faint ancient lullaby that drifted on deep frequencies. When Mara Keen's name was spoken, it was with reverence. Her ship, Horizon's Grace, became a museum, floating in orbit above Luna. Inside her quarters, visitors found the empty desk where the bells had once stood. The plaque beside it read, "She rang the bells only once, and the stars answered." Each year, on the anniversary of the Erebus Resolution, the wardens gathered there. They didn't hold parades. They simply stood together in silence for exactly 1 minute, the length of the song that had saved them all. Elsewhere, beyond the borders of human space, other species began to adopt what they called the Terran principle. It spread slowly like light finding cracks in stone. The rule was simple. Power is not what you can destroy. Power is what you can protect. The idea moved through the galaxy not by decree, but by example. Starvation zones became sanctuaries. Pirate fleets became patrols. Entire worlds began to hum the same rhythm, a music that reminded them of the line's heartbeat. Even the youngest species, those born after the wars, knew the story. They grew up tracing the edge of the maps and asking why it ended there. And their elders would smile and tell them, "Because there are people who guard us from the dark, and they ask for nothing in return." Somewhere, deep in the archives of the Terran network, there was a hidden channel that only the wardens knew. When the universe grew too loud, when wars flared or hope dimmed, they played it. The channel didn't carry orders. It carried a song, a voice soft and steady. "You are being heard. You are not forgotten." One day, long after Mara's time, a small ship approached the line again. Not a warship, not a scout, just a freighter carrying food, medicine, and books. It drifted too close, its pilot unaware of the old boundaries. The captain was a young girl from a world that had never known war. Her instruments went haywire. Lights flickered. The stars rearranged themselves into a shape she didn't recognize. And then, through her comms, a voice spoke. "You are near the line. Do you wish to go home?" The girl swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to trespass. I'm sorry." "You haven't trespassed," the voice said kindly. "You've wandered. Everyone does once." Then her navigation console flickered. New coordinates appeared, safe lanes leading back to known space. She stared, trembling. "Who are you?" she asked. There was a pause, then a quiet chuckle. "A friend. The line remembers those who speak gently." The comms went silent. When she turned her ship around, the stars shifted back into their proper places. She never saw the figure watching her from the other side. A woman made of light, her hair like flowing nebulae, eyes bright as dawn. The echo of Mara Keen's mind, preserved in the living network that guarded the border. The last warden. She smiled as the freighter vanished safely beyond the edge and whispered to herself. Still learning, still kind. Time passed. Stars lived and died. The galaxy changed. But the line remained. New civilizations rose that had never known the wars of conquest. They traded, sang, built, and dreamed beneath the glow of the guardian star. When asked why no one charted what lay beyond, they gave many answers: superstition, treaty, respect. But the truest one was always the simplest, because we trust the ones who live there. And on nights when the void was especially quiet, you could hear it again, that steady pulse woven into the static of space. Boom! 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 The heartbeat of a species that had once been feared, now remembered as the keepers of mercy. Epilogue. 1,000 years later, a new map of the galaxy was drawn. The old warnings were gone. Where the charts once ended in black, there was now a thin line of gold, curling like light around a hand. The inscription beneath it read, "The line of humanity, not a barrier, but a promise." Below it, a second line appeared in countless languages, each translation the same. "Here begins the quiet. Keep it well." The stars beyond it pulsed once, like an ancient heart still beating in the deep. The galaxy never saw humans as conquerors again. They saw them as the ones who listened, the ones who remembered, the ones who built a wall of kindness and called it peace. And as the lullaby drifted across the void, even the oldest races found themselves pausing, heads bowed, as if hearing an old friend's voice from long ago whisper through the dark. "We drew the line not to keep you out, but to keep the light in." Boom, boom, boom. The heartbeat continued. The stars listened, and the galaxy finally slept in peace. Cha.